My feet ached in the regulation heels I'd been wearing for the last 6 hours. The cabin lights were dimmed for the overnight flight from Miami to New York, and most passengers had settled into restless sleep or the glow of their screens. I moved through the aisles of the 737, collecting empty cups and offering blankets with practiced efficiency. 6 years as a flight attendant had taught me to smile through exhaustion, to soothe turbulent spheres, to handle drunk businessmen with grace. But nothing had prepared me for the sound coming from seat 2A. A child's wail, raw and desperate, cut through the cabin's white noise. Not the angry tantrum of a tired toddler. This was grief, wrapped in a 4-year-old's lungs. The kind of crying that made your chest hurt just hearing it. I glanced toward first class. Through the gap in the curtain, I could see a man hunched in his seat, a small boy thrashing in his lap. Other first-class passengers shifted uncomfortably. A woman in 1C pressed her noise-canceling headphones tighter against her ears. The man in 1D flagged down my colleague Jessica with an irritated gesture. "Can't you do something about that?" he demanded, loud enough for half the cabin to hear. "Some of us are trying to rest." Jessica's smile was strained. "I'm so sorry, sir. I'll see what I can do." She disappeared behind the curtain. I heard her speaking in low tones, probably offering the standard solutions. A snack, a coloring book, a stuffed animal from our limited supply. None of it would work. I already knew that. This wasn't hunger or boredom. This was something deeper. The crying intensified. I shouldn't have gotten involved. Crew members had assignments, territories. First class was Jessica's domain. But my feet carried me forward anyway, past the boundary that separated premium seats from the rest of us. The scene that greeted me made something in my chest twist. The man holding the boy was younger than I'd initially thought. Mid-30s, maybe. Dark hair swept back from a face that would have been handsome if not for the exhaustion carved into every line. A scar ran along his jaw, pale against olive skin. His suit was expensive, the kind that cost more than my monthly rent. But none of that mattered, because his eyes held the same desperation as his son's cries. He was trying. God, he was trying. One large hand rubbed circles on the boy's back. The other held a stuffed rabbit that had clearly seen better days. His voice was low, accented, pleading in a language I didn't recognize. Italian, maybe. Jessica caught my eye, relief flooding her features. "Maybe you could try," she whispered. "I've offered everything." I approached slowly. The man's head snapped up at my presence, and I nearly stepped back. His eyes were dark brown, almost black in the dim lighting, and they assessed me in a single sweep. Not lecherous, calculating, like he was determining whether I was a threat or an ally. "Sir?" My voice came out softer than intended. "I'm Alyssa. May I try something?" He studied me for a long moment. The boy continued to sob against his shoulder, small fists clutching his father's shirt. Finally, the man nodded once, a sharp, controlled gesture. "Please," he said. Just one word, but it carried the weight of months, maybe years. I crouched beside them, bringing myself to the boy's eye level. He had his father's dark hair, though his curled where his father's lay straight. His eyes were red-rimmed, tears streaming down flushed cheeks. He couldn't have been more than 4. "Hey there, sweetheart," I said gently. "My name's Alyssa. What's yours?" He buried his face deeper into his father's chest. The man's jaw tightened. "Luca," he supplied. His accent wrapped around the name, making it beautiful. "His name is Luca. That's a lovely name." I stayed crouched, making myself small and non-threatening. "Luca, I bet you're tired of this plane, huh?" "Me too. I've been walking up and down these aisles all night. No response. Just those heartbreaking sobs that showed no signs of stopping. An idea sparked. Dangerous, probably. But conventional methods had failed. "You know what my mama used to do when I couldn't sleep?" I asked, not expecting an answer. "She'd sing to me. Would you like me to sing for you?" Luca's crying hitched. Not quite stopping, but shifting. The man's dark eyes locked onto mine, and something passed between us. Permission. Desperation. Hope. I began to sing. The words came automatically, muscle memory from childhood. a soft melody my mother had sung to me every night before bed, even during those final months when cancer had stolen her voice's strength. I'd been 19 when she died, too old for lullabies but young enough to still crave them. Hush now, little one. Close your weary eyes. The moon is watching over you beneath the darkened skies. The effect was immediate. Luca's sobs cut off mid-breath. His small body went rigid in his father's arms, then slowly, incrementally, relaxed. Tiny fingers loosened their death grip on his father's shirt. I kept singing, my voice barely above a whisper. The cabin around us seemed to fade. It was just the three of us suspended in this moment, connected by a melody I'd almost forgotten I knew. When I reached the second verse, Luca turned his head. Those brown eyes, so like his father's, stared at me with an intensity that stole my breath. His lower lip still trembled, but the crying had stopped. Stars will guide you through the night, keep you safe till morning light. Dream of meadows, dream of streams. Let your heart be filled with dreams. By the time I finished, Luca had shifted completely. He leaned away from his father's chest, reaching for me with both small hands, the universal gesture of a child wanting to be held. I glanced at the man. His expression had transformed. The exhaustion remained, but beneath it burned something fierce. Recognition. Shock. And unless I was imagining it, the shimmer of unshed tears. "May I?" I asked. He nodded, seeming incapable of speech. Luca came into my arms easily, as if we'd known each other forever. He was warm and solid, his curls tickling my chin as he nestled against my shoulder. His breathing evened out almost immediately. Within minutes, he was asleep, one small hand fisted in my burgundy uniform jacket. The man's voice was rough. He cleared his throat, tried again. "How did you know that song?" "My mother," I said simply. "She sang it to me every night. My wife sang it to him." His words were careful, measured. "She died 8 months ago. He hasn't. Since then, he doesn't sleep. Doesn't eat properly. The doctors say he'll adjust, but..." He gestured helplessly at his sleeping son. My heart cracked. "I'm so sorry. That song. You sound like her." "Not exactly, but..." He shook his head, as if trying to clear it. "What is your name again?" "Alyssa Carter." "Gabriel," he replied, not offering a last name. "Gabriel Montesani." The name meant nothing to me. Should it have? "Well, Gabriel Montesani," I said, adjusting my grip on Luca to make us both more comfortable. "It looks like I'm going to be here for a while. At least until we land. You don't have to..." "I want to," I interrupted. And I meant it. This child in my arms felt right somehow. Natural. Like I was supposed to be here in this moment. Gabriel studied me again. That calculating gaze mapping my face. What he was looking for? I couldn't say. But eventually, something in him settled. "Thank you, Alyssa Carter." The rest of the flight passed in strange intimacy. I stayed in first class, seated in the empty seat beside Gabriel with Luca sleeping peacefully in my arms. Jessica brought me water and covered for my absence without question. The other passengers stopped complaining, grateful for the silence. Gabriel and I spoke in whispers. Small things at first. Where I was from, how long I'd been flying, careful questions that felt like tests I didn't know I was taking. He asked about my mother. I found myself telling him about her battle with cancer, her love of music, the way she'd made our tiny apartment feel like home even as medical bills buried us. Things I rarely shared with anyone. In return, he offered fragments. A boy who once laughed easily, a wife taken too soon. The impossible task of single parenthood while running businesses that demanded constant travel. His hand rested on the armrest between us, and I noticed details I'd missed before. A heavy gold ring on his right hand. A watch that probably cost more than my car. Calluses that seemed at odds with his obvious wealth. "Where are you staying in New York?" he asked as the captain announced our descent. "Brooklyn. I have a small apartment in Sunset Park." "That's not close to the airport." "No, but the rent is manageable." Something flickered across his face. "Let me drive you home. It's the least I can do." I should have said no. He was a passenger, a stranger. But Luca chose that moment to stir, his small hand tightening on my jacket, as if afraid I'd disappear. Gabriel saw it too. "Please," he said again, that word carrying the same weight as before. "All right," I heard myself say. "Thank you." We landed smoothly. I had to wake Luca gently to prepare for taxi. His eyes opened slowly, unfocused, then found mine. A sleepy smile curved his lips. The first smile, Gabriel told me later, he'd seen in weeks. I should have known then, should have recognized that nothing about this was normal, that men who could afford first-class tickets and wore $1,000 watches rarely drove flight attendants home out of simple gratitude. But all I saw was a father desperate to help his grieving son, a boy who had found momentary peace in my arms, and a melody that connected us across the boundary of loss. I should have walked away at the gate, should have said goodbye and returned to my ordinary life. I didn't. Gabriel's car was exactly what I should have expected. Black, sleek, expensive enough to pay my rent for a year. The interior smelled of leather and something spiced that I couldn't identify. Luca sat between us in the back seat, his small hand wrapped around my fingers like a lifeline. "You don't have to hold my hand the whole way, sweetheart," I said gently. "I'm not going anywhere." His grip tightened. Those dark eyes, still puffy from crying, fixed on my face with an intensity that made my chest ache. He didn't speak, just held on. Gabriel watched from the other side, his expression unreadable. The driver, a broad-shouldered man who'd introduced himself only as Vincent, navigated through post-midnight traffic with practiced ease. "He hasn't spoken much," Gabriel said quietly, "since Rachel died. The therapists say it's normal for his age. That grief manifests differently in children." "Rachel was your wife?" "Yes." The single word carried volumes. 8 months ago. Car accident on the Long Island Expressway. She was coming home from visiting her sister in Connecticut. I looked down at Luca, understanding blooming, painful, and clear. This wasn't just a child who missed his mother. This was a child whose entire world had shattered. "I'm sorry," I said, the words feeling inadequate. "That's not enough time. For either of you." "No." Gabriel's jaw tightened. "It's not." We drove in silence for a while. Brooklyn's streets rolled past the tinted windows. Gabriel asked for my address, and I gave it, watching his expression for judgment that never came. Sunset Park wasn't dangerous, but it wasn't Long Island either. "He doesn't sleep," Gabriel said abruptly. "Every night he wakes screaming. Sometimes 3, 4 times. Nothing helps. I've hired 6 nannies in 8 months. The longest one lasted 3 weeks before she quit. That must be exhausting. For both of you, I've tried everything the doctors suggest. Routine, therapy, medication. He won't eat unless I force him, won't play with other children. He just exists. Until tonight." Luca's thumb had found its way to his mouth. His eyes were drooping, his body growing heavy against my side. The transformation from the screaming child on the plane to this peaceful boy seemed impossible. "That song," Gabriel continued. "How did you know it?" "I didn't know it would work. My mother sang it to me when I was little. Through everything. Even when she was sick at the end, she'd hum it because her voice was too weak for words. Rachel sang it every night. His voice was rough. Her grandmother taught it to her. I don't even know if it has a name. Neither do I." The car pulled up outside my building. The contrast between Gabriel's world and mine had never been more obvious. Cracked sidewalks, graffiti on the corner bodega, a broken streetlight that had been out for months. Gabriel looked at the building, then at me. Something shifted in his expression. A decision being made. "Miss Carter," he said. And the formality felt strange after the intimacy of the past hours. "I know this is unusual, inappropriate even, but I need to ask you something." I waited. "Would you consider working for me? Temporarily, as Luca's nanny?" The request hit me like cold water. "I'm not a nanny, Mr. Montesani. I'm a flight attendant." "I know. But he responds to you. In 8 months, you're the first person who's gotten through to him. It was one song, one night. It was more than that." He gestured to Luca, now fully asleep, still clutching my hand. "Look at him. He won't let you go." And he stopped, seemed to gather himself. I'm desperate. Name your price. I can't just quit my job. I have bills, responsibilities. I'll pay whatever you're making now, plus 50%. You'd live at the house in Long Island, full room and board, health insurance, whatever you need. My mind reeled. The offer was insane. Generous to the point of suspicious. But when I looked at Luca's peaceful face, I felt something tug in my chest. I need time to think about this. Of course. Gabriel reached into his suit jacket, produced a business card. Heavy cardstock, embossed letters. Just a name and phone number. Call me when you decide. Or if you have questions. I took the card, careful not to wake Luca as I shifted. I should go. Let me help you. Gabriel moved slowly, lifting his son with practiced ease. Luca stirred, whimpered, reached for me even in sleep. Shh, little one, I whispered, smoothing his hair. Sweet dreams. He settled. Gabriel's eyes met mine over his son's head, and something passed between us. Gratitude, yes, but also something deeper, more complicated. Thank you, Alyssa, he said. For tonight. For him. You don't have to thank me. Yes, he said softly. I do. I climbed out of the car, watched them drive away. The taillights disappeared around the corner, and suddenly I was alone on my empty street at 2 a.m, holding a stranger's business card. Sleep didn't come easy that night. I lay in my tiny bedroom, staring at the water stain on the ceiling, turning Gabriel's offer over in my mind. It was crazy. I didn't know him. Didn't know anything about his life beyond the grief written in his son's eyes. But I couldn't stop thinking about Luca, about the way he'd melted into my arms, the peace that had transformed his small face. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I needed time to think without the pressure of a 10-hour shift. I researched Gabriele Montesani on my laptop, coffee growing cold beside me. The search results showed a legitimate businessman. Import company, several properties in New York and New Jersey, charitable donations to children's hospitals, photos from galas and business conferences, always in immaculate suits, always with that same controlled expression. A few older photos showed him with a beautiful woman. Dark hair, warm smile. Rachel, I assumed. Nothing suspicious. Nothing that explained the weight in his eyes or the desperation in his voice. The flowers arrived on the 3rd day. Not roses. Purple irises in a crystal vase with a note in elegant handwriting. No pressure, just hope. GM. They sat on my kitchen counter, absurdly beautiful in my cramped apartment. Every time I looked at them, I thought of Luca's hand in mine. On the 5th day, I made my decision. I called the airline's HR department first. 6 years of service, gone in a 15-minute conversation. They were understanding, offered to hold my position for 60 days if I changed my mind. I thanked them and hung up, my hands shaking. Then I dialed the number on Gabriel's card. He answered on the 2nd ring. Alyssa, I'll do it, I said before I could reconsider. I'll try. For a few weeks at least. The exhale on the other end sounded like relief. Thank you. When can you start? I need 3 days to pack and handle things here. I'll send a car on Sunday, 10 a.m. All right. Alyssa? His voice softened. You won't regret this. I hoped he was right. Sunday morning arrived too quickly. I stood in my apartment, 2 suitcases packed, wondering what I'd just agreed to. The black car pulled up precisely at 10. Vincent emerged, offered a professional smile, and loaded my bags. The drive to Long Island felt eternal. We left Brooklyn behind, crossed into Queens, then Nassau County. The neighborhoods changed gradually, houses growing larger, lawns more manicured. Gates appeared. Security cameras, the visible markers of serious wealth. Finally, we turned onto a private drive. A gate swung open automatically, revealing a property that made my breath catch. The mansion was modern, all clean lines and large windows, set back on grounds that seemed to stretch forever. Gardens, a fountain, what looked like a tennis court in the distance. Jesus, I whispered. Vincent's smile widened slightly. Mr. Montesani values his privacy. That was an understatement. As we approached the main house, I noticed cameras mounted discreetly. Men in dark suits walking the perimeter. Their posture was too rigid, too alert. Security, clearly. But for what? The car stopped at the entrance. Vincent opened my door, and I stepped out onto pristine stone pavers. The front door opened before we reached it. A woman stood framed in the doorway. Tall, elegant, probably in her 50s, with silver-streaked dark hair pulled into a sleek bun. Her eyes were sharp, assessing, missing nothing. "Miss Carter," she said, her accent similar to Gabriel's. "I am Sophia. I manage the household staff. Mr. Montesani is in a meeting, but asked me to show you to your quarters." "Thank you." She turned without waiting for me to follow. I hurried after her into a foyer that could have fit my entire apartment. Marble floors, a curved staircase, artwork that looked expensive even to my untrained eye. "The house has 3 floors," Sophia explained as we climbed. "The main living areas are on the 1st floor. Family bedrooms on the 2nd. Staff quarters and storage on the 3rd. You'll be staying in the east wing, 2nd floor, near Luca's room." We reached a hallway lined with closed doors. Sophia stopped at one, pushed it open. "This will be yours." The room was larger than my bedroom and living room combined. A queen bed with a dove-gray duvet, a sitting area with comfortable chairs, windows overlooking the gardens, an attached bathroom visible through another door. "It's beautiful," I managed. "Dinner is at 7. Breakfast is available from 6 to 9 in the morning. If you need anything, there's an intercom system." She pointed to a panel near the door. "Press 1 for the kitchen, 2 for housekeeping, 3 for security." Security. The word hung in the air. "Luca's room is 2 doors down. Mr. Montesani's is across the hall. Please don't disturb him unless it's urgent." Her tone made it clear what she thought of my presence here. Suspicion radiated from every precise word. "I'm just here to help Luca," I said quietly. "We'll see." She turned to leave, then paused. "He's been through 6 nannies in 8 months, Miss Carter. Whatever you think you can offer. Others have tried and failed." The door closed behind her, leaving me alone in my new room, surrounded by luxury I'd never imagined, working for a man I barely knew, to help a child who'd crawled into my heart in a single night. I walked to the window, looked out at the perfectly maintained grounds, and wondered what I'd gotten myself into. 2 weeks. That's how long it took for Luca to smile at me without prompting. 14 days of patient routine, gentle coaxing, and that same lullaby sung every night until my voice grew hoarse. The first morning, he'd refused breakfast, sat at the massive kitchen table, small and lost, pushing scrambled eggs around his plate with a fork he barely knew how to hold. I didn't force him, just sat beside him, ate my own meal, and hummed softly. By lunch, he'd eaten 3 bites of a sandwich. By dinner, half a bowl of pasta. Progress measured in mouthfuls. The house was a maze, I learned slowly. 30 rooms, maybe more. I stopped counting after the 3rd library. Yes, 3 separate libraries. Each morning, I'd wake to sunlight streaming through windows that overlooked gardens so perfect they looked painted. My old apartment in Brooklyn felt like a fever dream, something that had happened to someone else. Luca's room was down the hall from mine, walls painted soft blue, toys organized with military precision, a bed shaped like a race car that he never slept in. Every night, he'd end up in Gabriel's room or mine, seeking comfort from nightmares I couldn't see but felt in every trembling breath. I found photos of Rachel in unexpected places. One in Luca's closet, tucked behind winter coats. Another in the music room, propped on the piano. She'd been beautiful. Dark hair that fell in waves past her shoulders, warm brown eyes, a smile that suggested she'd known how to find joy in small moments. In every photo, Gabriel looked at her like she was his entire world. "You have her voice," Sophia told me one afternoon. The housekeeper had thawed marginally over the 2 weeks, her suspicion replaced by grudging acceptance. Not exactly, but the tone, the pitch, it's close. That explained the lullaby, the way Luca had responded so immediately on the plane. I wasn't just singing his mother's favorite song. I sounded like her while doing it. The knowledge sat heavy in my chest. I was a replacement, a vocal ghost meant to soothe a grieving child. But when Luca laughed for the first time, a bright sound that filled the garden where we were playing, I couldn't bring myself to care about my role, only about the boy who was slowly coming back to life. Gabriel noticed. Of course he did. He'd started spending more time at home, appearing at meals, joining us for afternoon walks around the property, always watching, those dark eyes tracking every interaction between Luca and me. He ate everything on his plate, I reported one evening. We stood in the hallway outside Luca's room, where the boy had finally fallen asleep without crying, and he asked me to read him 3 different books. 3? Gabriel's expression softened. He hasn't asked for stories since. I know. I did know. Sophia had told me. The old nannies had told me during the brief overlapping days before they'd left. Luca hadn't wanted books, hadn't wanted music, hadn't wanted anything that reminded him of before. Thank you, Alyssa. Gabriel's voice was low, intimate in the dimmed hallway. I don't know how you're doing this, but thank you. Our eyes met, held. Something passed between us, electric and dangerous. I stepped back, breaking the moment. Just doing my job, I said, too brightly. His jaw tightened. Right. Your job. These moments multiplied, hands brushing when we both reached for Luca's hand during walks, shoulders touching in the narrow doorway of the playroom, long conversations after Luca slept. Sitting in the library with Brandy, I barely touched while Gabriel told me about his childhood in Sicily, his parents' immigration, the weight of family legacy. He never mentioned his work, just businesses, import companies, investments. Nothing that explained the armed men I'd seen on the grounds. Nothing that justified the security cameras hidden in every corner. I noticed things. Small details that accumulated like stones in my pocket. Conversations that switched from English to rapid Italian when I entered a room. Men in dark suits who visited late at night, their faces hard, their postures suggesting violence held barely in check. The way Gabriel's entire demeanor changed during phone calls, his voice dropping to something cold and commanding that made my spine straighten instinctively. Who are those men? I asked Sophia one afternoon while folding Luca's laundry. Her hands stilled. Business associates. They don't look like businessmen. Mr. Montesani's affairs are not your concern, Miss Carter. You're here for Luca. Nothing more. The warning was clear. But warnings had never stopped my curiosity. It happened on the 14th night. Luca had a rough evening. Nightmares that woke him screaming twice before midnight. I'd finally gotten him settled, singing until he slept. His small hand wrapped around my fingers. My throat was dry. I headed downstairs for water, moving quietly through the dark house. The kitchen was in the west wing, past Gabriel's study. As I approached, I heard voices. Low, angry, speaking English for once. I should have kept walking. Should have minded my business. But Gabriel's voice stopped me. I don't care what Sinaloa wants, he said, the words sharp as broken glass. They don't dictate terms in my territory. Territory. The word snagged in my brain. Another voice, unfamiliar. They're pushing hard, boss. 3 shipments intercepted this month. They're testing you. Then we eliminate the problem, permanently. I want Rodriguez found and handled before the end of the week. Eliminate. Handled. Words that meant something specific when spoken in that tone. My hand found the wall, steadying myself. This wasn't business. This was something else. Something dangerous. What about the girl? A different voice now. The nanny. She's been asking questions. Alyssa is not your concern. Gabriel's tone could have frozen fire. She's here for my son. That's all. With respect, sir, she's a liability. Civilians always are. She's not a liability. She's... He paused. She's off limits. Make sure everyone understands that. I backed away slowly, my heart hammering so hard I was certain they could hear it. Back through the hallway, up the stairs, into my room where I locked the door with shaking hands. Eliminate. Territory. Sinaloa. The words replayed in my mind, connecting dots I'd deliberately ignored. The security. The armed men. The way people spoke Gabriel's name with a mixture of respect and fear. Gabriel Montesani wasn't just a businessman. He was something else. Something I'd been naive to miss. I didn't sleep. Just sat on my bed, watching the door, trying to decide what to do. Leave. Obviously leave. Call the police. Except what would I tell them? That I'd overheard a conversation that might mean nothing? That I suspected my employer was involved in illegal activities based on vague words and armed guards? And Luca, God, Luca, the boy who'd finally started eating, started smiling, started healing. If I left, would he regress? Would he spend another 8 months crying himself to sleep every night? Dawn broke. I still hadn't decided. A knock on my door made me jump. Alyssa? Gabriel's voice, calm and controlled. Are you awake? I didn't answer. I know you heard last night. I saw you in the hallway. My stomach dropped. Of course he'd known. Men like him missed nothing. We need to talk. Please. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. Gabriel stood in the hallway, still dressed in last night's clothes, exhaustion written in every line of his face. But his eyes were alert, assessing, dangerous. Come with me, he said. Not a request. He led me to his study, closed the door, gestured to a chair I didn't take. We stood facing each other across his massive desk, the morning light casting long shadows between us. I'm not going to lie to you, Gabriel said. You deserve better than that. What are you? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. What do you think I am? I think you're involved in something illegal. Something dangerous. I think those men who visit aren't business associates. I think territory means something different to you than it does to most people. His mouth curved, not quite a smile. You're intelligent. I've always known that. Answer the question. My family has been involved in certain operations for 3 generations. Import, export, protection services. Some of it legitimate. Much of it not. He met my eyes steadily. You'd call it organized crime. The Mafia, if you want to be traditional about it. The confirmation hit like a physical blow, even though I'd known. Suspected. Hoped I was wrong. But known. I need to leave, I said. Now. You can. I won't stop you. The car is yours anytime you want it. Just like that. Just like that. He moved around the desk, closing the distance between us. But before you go, think about Luca. Think about the past 2 weeks. The progress he's made. The smiles. The fact that he's eating, playing, living again instead of just existing. That's not fair. No, Gabriel agreed. It's not. But it's true. You saved my son, Alyssa. You brought him back from somewhere dark I couldn't reach. And if you leave now, he'll lose you the same way he lost his mother. Another woman who sang him to sleep and then disappeared forever. Tears burned my eyes. You're using him to manipulate me. I'm asking you to consider his needs alongside your fear. Yes, my work is dangerous. Yes, I'm involved in things that would horrify you if you knew the details. But Luca is innocent. And he needs you. Daddy? The small voice from the doorway shattered the moment. Luca stood there, clutching his rabbit, tears streaming down his face. Lysa leaving? I was across the room before I could think, gathering him into my arms. No, sweetheart. I'm not leaving. Promise? His small hands fisted in my shirt. Promise not go like Mama? My heart broke clean in half. Over his head, my eyes met Gabriel's. The bastard knew exactly what he was doing. Knew I couldn't walk away from this child who'd wrapped himself around my heart. I promise, I whispered, sealing my fate. I'm not going anywhere. The rules were simple. I cared for Luca, nothing more. Gabriel and I existed in parallel orbits, intersecting only when necessary for his son's welfare. Professional distance maintained at all times. It lasted exactly 4 days. The problem was proximity. Gabriel started working from home more frequently, his office door open, his presence a constant gravitational pull I tried to ignore. He'd appear at mealtimes, join our afternoon routines, sit with us during Luca's bath time. Always watching, always there, making the mansion feel smaller with every passing hour. You don't have to shadow us, I said one afternoon. We stood in the garden while Luca chased butterflies through flower beds that probably cost more than my annual salary had been. I know what I'm doing. I'm not shadowing. Gabriel's hands were in his pockets, his suit jacket discarded somewhere inside. White shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows revealed forearms corded with muscle. I'm spending time with my son. You're hovering. Perhaps. A slight smile touched his mouth. Can you blame me? He's laughing again. Playing. Being a child instead of a ghost. I don't want to miss a moment of it. I couldn't argue with that, so I stopped trying to maintain distance and let him orbit closer. Dangerous, but inevitable. Luca bloomed under his father's attention. The nightmares came less frequently. He ate without coaxing, started asking questions about everything, his vocabulary expanding daily, as if making up for months of silence. Why is the sky blue? He asked one morning at breakfast. Gabriel looked at me, eyebrow raised. I launched into an explanation about light refraction that was probably too complicated for a 4-year-old, but seemed to satisfy him. Smart and beautiful, Gabriel murmured when Luca ran off to play. Dangerous combination. Don't. I stood, gathering dishes. We have boundaries, remember? I'm simply observing facts. Observe them silently. But the tension between us stretched tighter every day. Hands that lingered too long when passing Luca between us. Conversations that drifted from logistics into something deeper, more personal. The way his eyes tracked me across rooms when he thought I wasn't looking. I told myself it meant nothing. He was grateful, that's all. I'd helped his son. Natural to feel some attachment to the person who'd done that. I told myself this while lying awake at night, my room 2 doors from his, hyper-aware of his presence across the hall. The park trip was my idea. 3 weeks in the mansion, and Luca needed more than manicured gardens. He needed other children, playground equipment, the chaos of normal childhood. Gabriel resisted. It's not safe. He needs socialization. You can't keep him locked in a gilded cage forever. Something flickered in his expression. Watch me. Gabriel. I kept my voice gentle but firm. He's doing so well, but he needs more than just us. Please. He studied me for a long moment, then sighed. Fine, but Vincent and 2 others come with us. Non-negotiable. Deal. The park was 30 minutes away, public and crowded on a Saturday afternoon. Families everywhere, children screaming joyfully on swings and slides. Luca's eyes went wide. Can I? He pointed to the jungle gym. Go, Gabriel said, and Luca took off like he'd been released from prison. Vincent and the other guards, whose names I'd learned were Marco and Anthony, positioned themselves strategically. Not obviously threatening, but there, always there. I tried not to think about what kind of life required this level of security for a trip to the park. Luca played. I pushed him on swings, caught him at the bottom of slides, laughed when he got dizzy from the spinning merry-go-round. Gabriel watched from a bench, phone in hand but eyes on his son. The expression on his face made something in my chest ache. This was what he'd been missing. Joy, normalcy, the simple pleasure of watching his child be happy. I was helping Luca across monkey bars when I noticed the man, 30s maybe. Leather jacket despite the warm weather, standing too still among the moving crowd, his attention fixed on our group. Not casual observation, focused surveillance. My stomach clenched. I glanced at Vincent. Saw his posture had changed. Rigid, alert. He'd noticed too. Time to go, Vincent said, appearing at my elbow. His voice was calm but brooked no argument. Now, Miss Carter. What's wrong? But I was already lifting Luca off the bars. Daddy? Luca's face crumpled. Not done playing. Gabriel materialized beside us, taking Luca from my arms. We'll come back another day, Piccolo. Promise. We moved quickly but not frantically toward the parking area. The guards formed a triangle around us. Vincent in front, Marco and Anthony flanking. I looked back once, saw the man in the leather jacket speaking into a phone. The drive back was silent except for Luca's confused questions. Gabriel's jaw was clenched so tight I worried he'd crack teeth. His hand gripped his phone hard enough to turn knuckles white. Inside the mansion, Gabriel handed Luca to me. Take him upstairs. Stay in your rooms until I come get you. Gabriel? Please, Alyssa. His eyes were harder than I'd ever seen them. Don't argue. Not about this. I took Luca upstairs, my heart pounding. Through my window I watched black SUVs arriving. Men in dark suits emerging. Gabriel meeting them in the driveway, his gestures sharp and angry. This was his world. Violence barely contained, danger lurking in public parks. Enemies I couldn't see but could feel pressing in from all sides. Luca and I played board games, read books. I sang him to sleep for an afternoon nap, then sat by the window, watching the increased security patrol the grounds. Gabriel came for us as dinner time approached. His tie was gone, shirt partially unbuttoned, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. "Is it safe?" I asked. "Safe enough. Come, we need to talk." Luca stayed with Sophia while Gabriel led me to his study. He poured himself whiskey, drank it in one swallow, poured another. "The man at the park," he began without preamble, "works for the Sinaloa cartel. They're trying to map out my vulnerabilities. Figure out leverage points." "Leverage points," I repeated. "You mean Luca?" "I mean anyone I care about." His eyes met mine, heavy with meaning. "Including you now. I'm just the nanny. You're more than that, and we both know it." He set down his glass. "They'll use whatever they can to get to me. My son, my home, people who work for me. And yes, the woman who's brought my son back to life." The weight of it settled on my shoulders. I'd known his life was dangerous, but knowing and feeling the threat were different things. What happens now? Increased security. You and Luca don't leave the property without my explicit permission and a full security team. No more spontaneous outings. So we're prisoners. You're protected. He moved closer, stopping just outside my personal space. "I need you to understand something. These people don't negotiate, they don't show mercy. If they decide Luca is useful leverage, they'll take him, and they won't be gentle about it." Fear spiked through me. "Then maybe I should leave. If I'm making things more dangerous, you're not making anything worse. They've been circling for months. Since before you arrived." He ran a hand through his hair, destroying its usual perfect order. "This is my life, Alyssa. The life I inherited when my father was killed. I was 25. My brother was supposed to take over, but he'd been murdered 3 months earlier. So it fell to me. The businesses, the territory, the endless cycle of threats and retaliation." I'd never heard him talk about his family before. "I'm sorry. Don't be. I've made my choices, built my empire. I'm not asking for sympathy." He paused, something vulnerable flickering across his face. "Rachel died in that car accident, but I've never been sure it was truly an accident. The brake lines showed unusual wear. The investigation was inconclusive, but my instincts, you think someone killed her. I think she became a target because she was mine, because loving me made her vulnerable." His voice dropped. "That's why this can't happen. Whatever this is between us. I see the way you look at me, feel the pull same as you do, but I won't make you a target." My breath caught. He'd said it out loud. Acknowledged the tension that had been building since that first night on the plane. "Maybe that's not your decision to make. It has to be. Because you don't understand what you'd be signing up for. The constant danger. The knowledge that people want to hurt you to get to me. The blood on my hands from protecting what's mine. I know you're not a good man, Gabriel. Do you?" He stepped closer. Close enough that I could smell his cologne. See the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "Do you know how many people I've killed? How many lives I've destroyed? The evil I've done in the name of family honor and territorial control? No, and maybe I don't want to know the details, but I see who you are with Luca. The father who'd do anything to protect his son. That's the man I stopped, caught myself before saying too much. The man you what?" His voice was rough, dangerous. We were too close. His hand came up, fingers brushing my cheek with devastating gentleness. Every nerve in my body lit up at the contact. "Alyssa." My name was a warning and a plea. I should go check on Luca, but I didn't move. Neither did he. His thumb traced my jaw, tilted my chin up. Our faces were inches apart. I could see his pulse hammering in his throat, feel the heat radiating off him. "This is a mistake," he whispered. "Probably." He leaned in. I stopped breathing. His lips were almost touching mine when he suddenly stepped back. The separation physical pain. "No," the word was harsh. "You deserve someone whole. Someone clean. Not a man whose world is built on violence and blood money. You deserve better than what I can offer." Before I could respond, he turned and walked out, leaving me alone in his study, my heart racing and my lips aching for a kiss that would never come. 3 days of self-imposed isolation felt like 3 years. The mansion's walls closed in despite their grandeur. Luca sensed the tension, growing clingy and restless. His nightmares returned, though less severe than before. He'd wake reaching for me, whimpering words I couldn't quite catch. Gabriel was a shadow, present but distant, locked in his office for hours, with men whose faces held no mercy. I'd catch glimpses of him through doorways, phone pressed to his ear, speaking that rapid Italian that meant violence was being discussed. The scar on his jaw seemed more pronounced when he was angry, a white slash against skin gone pale with stress. I told myself I was here for Luca. Only Luca. The almost kiss in the study meant nothing. Gabriel had made his position clear. We existed in separate worlds that should never collide. My heart disagreed with increasing urgency. The attack came at 3 a.m. I woke to sounds that didn't belong. Not quite explosions, but something sharp and percussive that rattled my windows. My brain, fogged with sleep, took precious seconds to understand. Gunfire. That was gunfire. Alarms shrieked through the house. I was out of bed, racing for Luca's room when Gabriel's door burst open. He wore only sleep pants, his chest bare, and in his right hand was a gun that looked obscenely large and real. "Stay there," he commanded, but I was already at Luca's door. The boy sat up in bed, eyes wide with terror, frozen in that awful moment between sleep and waking nightmare. I grabbed him, blankets and all, just as Gabriel reached us. The safe room. Now. He didn't wait for response, his free hand gripping my arm and pulling us toward the hallway. More gunfire. Closer now. Breaking glass somewhere below. Shouting in languages I couldn't identify. We ran. Gabriel led us to a section of wall that looked like every other section, until he pressed his palm against a hidden panel. The wall shifted, revealing a narrow doorway and stairs leading down. "Go." He practically shoved us through. "You're coming too, right?" My voice shook. Luca was sobbing against my shoulder, his small body trembling so hard I thought he'd shake apart. "Right behind you." The stairs were steep, dimly lit by emergency lighting. At the bottom was a door made of steel, serious and final. Gabriel entered a code on a keypad. The door opened with a mechanical hiss. Inside was a room maybe 15 feet square. Gray walls, no windows, a single vent in the ceiling. Basic furniture. Supplies stacked against one wall. A bank of monitors showing various angles of the property. On the screens, I could see figures moving through the darkness. Flashes of muzzle fire. Bodies falling. My stomach lurched. "Daddy?" Luca's voice was tiny, broken. "Bad men?" "Very bad men, Piccolo." Gabriel locked the door behind us, engaged what looked like additional bolts. "But they can't reach us here. Vincent and the others will handle it." He moved to a radio system, barked orders in Italian. His tone was ice and steel, nothing of the vulnerable man who'd almost kissed me 3 days ago. This was the other Gabriel, the one who'd inherited an empire at 25 and built it larger through blood and strategy. Luca wouldn't let me go. His arms circled my neck in a stranglehold, his face buried against my shoulder. I sank onto one of the chairs, rocking him, murmuring nonsense words because actual comfort seemed impossible. Gabriel knelt beside us. "Luca, look at me." The boy turned his head slightly. "I will always protect you. Always. Do you understand? No one will hurt you while I'm alive." Luca nodded, then reached for his father. Gabriel gathered him close, and suddenly I was part of an embrace I hadn't planned. Gabriel's arm around Luca. Luca between us, my hand on Gabriel's shoulder without conscious decision. Above us, the battle raged. We could hear it even through the reinforced walls. Explosions, shouting, the stuttering percussion of automatic weapons. Each sound made me flinch, made Luca cry harder. Then I noticed the blood. "Gabriel." My voice came out strangled. "Your arm." He glanced down as if just remembering. A gash ran along his left bicep, deep and angry, blood seeping steadily. Not a direct hit. A graze, but serious. It's nothing. It's not nothing. I looked around frantically, spotted a first aid kit on the supply shelf. Sit down. Alyssa, sit down. Something in my tone made him obey. I settled Luca on the couch with his rabbit, promised I'd be right there, and brought the kit to Gabriel. My hand shook as I opened it, found gauze and antiseptic. This will hurt, I warned. I've had worse. I believed him. The scar on his jaw probably had stories I didn't want to hear. I cleaned the wound as gently as possible, felt him tense but make no sound. The intimacy of it overwhelmed me. My fingers on his skin, his blood on my hands, the sound of his breathing in the confined space. You should have worn a shirt when you rescued us, I said, trying for lightness and failing. Then you wouldn't be bleeding all over my efforts here. I'll remember that next time armed men invade my home. I wrapped the wound, secured the bandage, my fingers lingering longer than necessary. When I looked up, his face was inches from mine. Those dark eyes held something fierce and desperate. Alyssa. Just my name. A warning, a prayer. Don't tell me this is a mistake, I whispered. Don't tell me I should leave, because I've made my choice. You don't understand what you're choosing. I understand that Luca needs me. That you need me, even if you won't admit it. I understand that this, I gestured at the walls surrounding us, the violence outside, is terrifying. But so is the thought of leaving. His hand came up, cupped my face with devastating gentleness. Blood still stained his fingers, making the gesture somehow more honest, more real. I will never be the man you deserve. Stop deciding what I deserve. He leaned in. I stopped breathing. This time he didn't pull away. His lips met mine with a hunger that stole thought. The kiss was urgent, desperate, tasting of fear and adrenaline and something sweeter underneath. His uninjured arm pulled me closer, and I went willingly, my fingers tangling in his hair. We broke apart when Luca whimpered. Reality crashed back. We were in a panic room. People were dying above us. This was madness. Gabriel rested his forehead against mine. If anything had happened to you, if they'd reached you before I did, they didn't. This time. His voice was raw. What about next time? The time after that? This is my life, Alyssa. Permanent threat. Constant danger. People who want to hurt anyone I care about. Then we deal with it. Together. He pulled back, searched my face. You're certain? Yes. Whatever he saw in my expression made something shift in his. A decision made. He kissed me again, softer this time. A promise instead of desperation. The radio crackled. Vincent's voice came through. Sir, we've secured the perimeter. 3 hostiles down, 2 in custody. Gabriel moved to the radio, his professional mask sliding back into place. Casualties on our side? 2 injured, non-critical. The house is secure. Keep the prisoners alive. I want to know who sent them. He ended transmission, turned back to me. It's over. For tonight. We stayed in the safe room another hour, letting Luca calm fully before venturing upstairs. When we finally emerged, dawn was breaking. The house looked normal from inside. But through the windows, I could see evidence of the attack. Bullet holes in stone. Broken glass. Dark stains on the driveway that made my stomach turn. Men were moving through the grounds, cleaning, repairing, erasing, making the violence disappear as if it had never happened. Gabriel carried Luca, who'd fallen into exhausted sleep. I followed them upstairs, watched as he laid his son in bed with infinite care. The tenderness on his face made my chest ache. In the hallway, he caught my hand. Get some rest. We'll talk later. Where are you going? To have a conversation with our guests. His expression went cold. They'll tell me who sent them, and then I'm going to end this threat permanently. Gabriel, I know what I'm doing, Alyssa. This is war, and I'm very good at war. He kissed me once more, quick and fierce, then disappeared down the stairs. I stood alone in the hallway, my lips still burning, my hands still shaking, fully understanding the choice I'd made. This was my life now. Violence and danger, and a man who killed to protect what was his. And somehow, terrifyingly, I was all in. The week after the attack transformed Gabriel. His arm healed, the bandage growing smaller each day until only a thin scar remained, pink and angry against his skin. But something else had changed. He moved through the house like a storm gathering strength, all controlled fury and deadly focus. I'd catch him in his study at odd hours, surrounded by maps and photographs, speaking rapid Italian into secure phone lines. The language of violence planning. His men came and went like shadows, their faces grim, their weapons no longer concealed. "You need to involve the police," I said one evening. Luca was asleep upstairs, finally settled after another nightmare. Gabriel and I stood in the library, the room dark except for firelight. "Let the authorities handle this." His laugh was bitter. "The authorities? Alyssa, half the police department is on someone's payroll. Mine, the cartels, other families. You think I can walk into a precinct and file a report about attempted murder by a Mexican drug cartel? There must be someone clean. FBI, maybe. And tell them what? That I'm a crime boss whose territory is being threatened? That would go well." He poured whiskey, didn't drink it. Just held the glass like an anchor. "This is my world. We handle our own problems. By killing people. Yes." No apology in his tone. "By eliminating threats before they eliminate us. Before they hurt Luca. Before they hurt you." The casual way he included me in that equation made my pulse stutter. "Gabriel, I'm sending you away." He cut me off, his voice leaving no room for argument. "You and Luca. There's a safe house in Vermont. Private property. Heavily secured. Far from here. You'll stay there while I handle this." "No." His eyes narrowed. "This isn't a negotiation. You're right. It's not." I crossed to him, close enough to see the exhaustion he tried to hide. "You don't get to push me away now. Not after everything. I'm trying to protect you." "I know, but I'm not leaving. Luca needs stability, not another disruption. And you—" I stopped, gathered courage. "You need to know someone is waiting for you to come back." Something cracked in his expression. "Don't make me care more than I already do. It's dangerous for both of us." Too late. He set down the glass, moved into my space. His hands framed my face, thumbs brushing my cheekbones. I've spent 8 months trying not to feel anything. Trying to stay numb because feeling meant remembering what I lost. Then you appeared on that plane with your voice and your kindness, and you made me feel again. Is that so terrible? It terrifies me. His forehead pressed against mine. Because I can't lose you. I won't survive losing someone else I love. Love, the word hung between us, enormous and fragile. Then don't lose me, I whispered. Come back safe. He kissed me like a man going to war. Desperate and claiming, his hands tangling in my hair, his body pressing mine against the wall. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. I need to know you're safe, he said. Please, go to Vermont, just until this is over. Only if you promise to come back. I promise. His voice was steel wrapped in silk. Nothing will keep me from you. That night we stayed together. Not in his bed or mine, but in the library where we'd first acknowledged what was building between us. He held me on the leather sofa, his arms solid and warm, while I traced the scar on his jaw and memorized the way his breathing changed when I touched certain places. We talked until dawn, about his childhood in Sicily, my mother's final days, the weight of legacy and loss. He told me about Rachel with a tenderness that made my heart ache, how she'd loved gardens and terrible romantic comedies, how she'd made him laugh even on his darkest days, how her death had hollowed him out until Luca was the only thing keeping him tethered to life. She'd like you, he said softly. She always said I needed someone who'd challenge me instead of just obeying. I'm not trying to replace her. I know. You couldn't if you tried. You're entirely your own. He kissed my temple. That's why I'm falling for you. Morning came too quickly. Gabriel had arranged everything. Vincent would drive us to Vermont immediately. The house was stocked, secured, staffed with people Gabriel trusted absolutely. We'd stay as long as necessary. Luca was confused when I told him we were taking a trip. What about Daddy? Daddy has work to do, Gabriel explained, kneeling before his son. But Alyssa will take care of you, and I'll come get you both very soon. Promise? Promise, Piccolo. He pulled Luca into a fierce hug. Over his son's head, his eyes met mine. The look in them said everything words couldn't. The drive to Vermont took 5 hours. Luca slept most of the way, exhausted from anxiety he couldn't articulate. I watched forests replace suburbs, mountains rise in the distance, civilization thinning until we turned onto a private road that wound through pine trees for miles. The house was beautiful, modern architecture blending seamlessly with wilderness. Large windows, natural wood, a sense of peaceful isolation. Under different circumstances, it would have been a vacation. Instead, it felt like exile. The days crawled. I kept Luca occupied with games, books, exploring the woods around the property under watchful guard supervision. He asked for his father constantly. I had no answers to give. Sophia called once a day with updates so vague they told me nothing. Mr. Montesani is handling the situation. He asked me to tell you he's thinking of you. A week passed. 7 days of not knowing if Gabriel was alive or dead. 7 nights of lying awake, straining to hear a phone ring, praying for news that didn't come. Luca sensed my fear. His nightmares returned with a vengeance. He'd wake screaming for both of us, his father and me, the 2 people he'd come to depend on. I'd hold him and sing until he slept, my voice breaking on lyrics that once brought comfort. On the 8th day, Sophia's call came at dawn. It's over. You can come home. Is he? He's alive. Vincent will bring you back this afternoon. She hung up before I could ask more, but alive was all that mattered. The drive back felt longer than the drive away. Luca bounced with excitement, asking questions I couldn't answer. Would Daddy be there? When could we have dinner together? Could we go to the park again? Soon, sweetheart, I promised, hoping it was true. The mansion looked unchanged from outside, but inside, the atmosphere had shifted. Men I didn't recognize stood guard. The staff moved with quiet efficiency tinged with grief. Something had happened here. Something final. Gabriel was in his study. The door was open, but everything about his posture screamed, "Keep out." He stood at the window, shoulders rigid, one hand pressed against the glass. I left Luca with Sophia and approached slowly. Gabriel? He turned. The man who looked back was familiar but different. Older somehow, despite only a week's passage. His eyes held shadows that hadn't been there before. Blood, metaphorical or real, I couldn't tell, stained him in ways I felt rather than saw. "It's done," he said flatly. "The cartel leadership is eliminated. The threat is neutralized. At what cost? 3 men dead, 2 more critically injured, all people who trusted me to protect them while they protected what's mine." His voice was hollow. "Their families will be compensated, cared for. But money doesn't bring fathers and sons back." I closed the distance between us, wrapped my arms around him from behind. He stiffened, then slowly relaxed into the embrace. "I'm glad you're alive," I whispered against his back. "I'm not sure I should be. Don't say that." He turned in my arms, but didn't return the embrace. "You should reconsider this, Alyssa. Me. This life. I just orchestrated the deaths of 11 people. Stood in rooms where men begged for mercy I didn't give. This is who I am. This is what I do. I know. Do you? Really?" He pulled away, putting space between us. I'm not conflicted about it. I'm not tortured by moral ambiguity. They threatened my son. They threatened you. So I ended them. And I'd do it again without hesitation. I believe you. Then why are you still here? Because Luca needs me. Because you need me. Even if you're trying to push me away. Because I made a choice to stay. And I'm not backing out because things got difficult. I moved closer again. You want me to be horrified? Scared? I am. But I'm more scared of leaving you alone in this darkness than I am of staying. He stared at me for a long moment. Then finally something broke. He pulled me against him, his grip almost painful in its intensity. I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you have me anyway. We stood like that until Luca's voice echoed through the house, calling for both of us. Gabriel's hand found mine, our fingers lacing together. Ready to pretend everything's normal? He asked quietly. I'm getting good at it. Together we went to find his son. Our son, I was starting to think. The family we were building from broken pieces and desperate hope. Gabriel stopped touching me. Not physically distant, but emotionally gone. He'd sit across from me at dinner, smile at Luca's stories, answer my questions with perfect courtesy, but the man who'd kissed me like I was oxygen had disappeared behind walls I couldn't scale. 2 weeks after we returned from Vermont, I found him in Rachel's garden. She'd designed it herself, according to Sophia. Roses and lavender, winding stone paths, a bench positioned to catch the morning sun. Gabriel sat there now, staring at nothing, his hands loose between his knees. "Luca's asking for you," I said quietly. "Wants you to read him the dinosaur book. Tell him I'll be there in a minute." "Gabriel." I said I'll be there. His tone was flat, empty, not angry. Worse. Absent. I left him there and went to read the dinosaur book myself for the 3rd time that week. Luca listened with half his attention, his eyes drifting to the doorway where his father didn't appear. "Is Daddy mad at me?" he asked when I closed the book. "No, sweetheart. Never. He's just dealing with grown-up things. Sad things?" "Yes, sad things." Luca curled against my side. "I don't want him to be sad. I don't want you to be sad either." My heart cracked. This child had already lost his mother. Now his father was disappearing into grief and guilt, while Luca watched, helpless and confused. That night, after Luca finally slept, I went to Gabriel's room. Knocked once, didn't wait for permission. He sat at his desk, paperwork spread before him, a glass of whiskey within reach. "We need to talk." "Not tonight, Alyssa." "Yes, tonight." I closed the door behind me, leaned against it. "You're shutting me out. You're shutting Luca out. And I'm done pretending it's fine." His jaw tightened. "I'm doing what I need to do. What you need to do is face what you're feeling instead of running from it. You don't understand. Then explain it to me." I moved closer, refused to let him hide behind that desk. "Tell me why the man who said he was falling for me won't look me in the eye anymore. Tell me why Luca asks if his father is mad at him, because you barely speak to him." That got through. His eyes finally met mine, and the pain in them stole my breath. "I killed 11 people, Alyssa. 11. I planned it, executed it, and walked away without losing a single night of sleep. 3 of my own men died following my orders. Their children will grow up without fathers, because I commanded them into a war zone." His voice was raw. "How am I supposed to come home and pretend to be a good man? How am I supposed to touch you with hands that have that much blood on them? I'm not asking you to pretend to be someone you're not. You should be." He stood abruptly, paced to the window. "You deserve better than this, than me. A normal man with a normal job who can give you a safe, clean life. Not someone who'll always have enemies, who'll always be one threat away from violence. Stop deciding what I deserve. I'm trying to protect you." "From what? From you?" I moved to stand beside him, close enough to feel the tension radiating off him. "Gabriel, I knew what you were before I made my choice. I saw the violence. I lived through the attack. I spent a week in Vermont not knowing if you'd come back alive. And I chose to stay anyway. You shouldn't have. Too late." I touched his arm. Felt him flinch. "You're doing what Rachel did. She died and left you and Luca alone. Now you're trying to leave us while still being physically present. And it's destroying him." His breath caught. "That's not fair." "No, it's not. But it's true. Luca's nightmares are back. He's withdrawn again. Not as bad as before, but he's slipping. He needs his father. The real one, not this ghost." Gabriel's hands clenched into fists. "What if I can't be what he needs? What if I'm too broken, too tainted by what I've done? Then we work on it. Together. You get therapy. You process what you've been through instead of burying it. You let me in instead of pushing me away because you've decided you're not worthy." I stepped in front of him, forced him to look at me. "I don't need you to be perfect, Gabriel. I need you to be present. To fight for us, the way you fight for your territory." Something cracked in his expression. "I'm afraid," he admitted, the words barely audible. "I'm afraid of losing you the way I lost her. I'm afraid of corrupting you. of dragging you so deep into my world that you can't get out. I'm afraid I'll fail Luca again, that I'll be too damaged to be the father he deserves. Those are all valid fears, but running from them won't make them go away. It just means you'll lose us anyway, and you'll have chosen it yourself." He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they were wet. "I don't know how to do this. How to be with someone when I'm like this. You start by letting me in, by accepting that family isn't about being perfect. It's about staying even when things are hard, even when you're broken, even when you've done terrible things." I took his hands, blood-stained or not. "I'm choosing to stay, Gabriel. Stop trying to make me leave." He pulled me against him suddenly, his arms wrapping around me with desperate strength. "I've been so lost," he whispered against my hair. "Since she died, I've just been going through motions. Luca was the only thing keeping me tethered. Then you appeared and gave me something else to hold on to. But I don't know how to let myself have it without destroying it. We'll figure it out." I held him tighter. "But you can't do it alone. Promise me you'll get help. Real help. Therapy, processing, whatever it takes. I promise." His voice was steady now, gaining strength. "I'll call someone tomorrow. And I'll talk to Luca. Explain things in a way he can understand." We stood like that for a long time, holding each other in the darkness of his room. When we finally pulled apart, something had shifted. Not fixed, not healed, but open. The walls had cracks now. Light could get through. Over the following weeks, Gabriel kept his promise. He found a therapist who specialized in trauma and grief, someone who understood the complexities of his world without judgment. He started spending real time with Luca again, not just present, but engaged, reading, playing, listening to his son's endless questions with patience and attention. He started opening up to me too, late-night conversations where he talked about Rachel with love instead of just pain, about his father's death, his brother's murder, the weight of legacy he'd never wanted but couldn't refuse, about the nightmares that still came sometimes, where he watched everyone he loved die while he stood frozen. I shared my own fears, about never being enough to replace what Luca had lost, about whether love could survive in a world built on violence, about the constant low-level terror that one day men would come again, and this time they wouldn't fail. We built something real from those conversations, not a fairy tale romance where danger was exciting and love conquered all. Something harder, more honest. A partnership between two people who'd both been broken and were choosing to build something new from the pieces. Gabriel also started making changes to his businesses. Not overnight transformations, but gradual shifts, delegating the more criminal operations to trusted commanders while he focused on the legitimate holdings. Hotels, restaurants, import companies that actually imported legal goods. Planning an exit strategy that would take years, but was finally possible. "I can't undo what I've done," he told me one evening. We sat in the library where so much had happened between us. "But I can choose differently going forward. For Luca. For us." One night, 3 months after I'd confronted him in his room, Gabriel asked me to walk with him. We left Luca with Sophia and headed into Rachel's garden. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of dying roses and rich earth. "I used to come here after she died," Gabriel said, trying to feel close to her, trying to understand why she was taken. "I'd sit on that bench and rage at God, at fate, at whoever was responsible." "Do you still?" "Sometimes. But less now. Because I'm starting to understand something." He stopped walking, turned to face me. "Rachel's death broke me. But you didn't fix me. You showed me I could be broken and still be loved, that I could carry this weight and still build something good." "Gabriel, let me finish." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box. Not jewelry store fancy. Simple, worn leather. This was my grandmother's. She gave it to my mother, who gave it to me before she died. I gave it to Rachel when I proposed. She wore it every day until the accident. He opened the box. Inside was a ring. Gold, delicate, with a single sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. Beautiful in its simplicity. "I'm not going to promise you a safe life. I can't. There will always be danger. always be threats. I'm not going to promise I'll never make mistakes or that I won't have dark days. He looked at me steadily. But I can promise I'll love you, that I'll be honest with you, even when the truth is ugly, that I'll fight for you and Luca with everything I have, and that I'll never stop choosing you, choosing us, no matter how hard it gets. Tears blurred my vision. Is that a proposal? Yes. A small smile touched his lips. Alyssa Carter, will you marry me? Will you take on my broken, dangerous life and help me build something better? I didn't hesitate. Yes. He slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, as if Rachel herself had blessed this moment. Gabriel pulled me close, kissed me with a tenderness that held everything we'd survived and everything we'd built. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. Thank you, he whispered, for not giving up on me. Never, I promised. We're in this together now. 6 months felt like a lifetime and a heartbeat all at once. The sapphire on my finger had become so familiar, I forgot it was there until light caught it and reminded me this was real. Gabriel and I were building something neither of us had expected. Not perfect, never that, but honest and solid, and ours. The wedding happened on a Saturday in April. We'd chosen Gabriel's property in upstate New York, a place I'd never seen before. Rolling hills, a small lake reflecting clouds, privacy wrapped in natural beauty. No press, no strangers, just 30 people who actually mattered. Vincent stood as best man, his usual stoic expression cracking into something resembling a smile. Sophia cried, which shocked everyone including herself. But Luca stole the entire show. He wore a miniature suit that matched his father's, his dark curls tamed with gel that lasted approximately 10 minutes. He carried the rings on a small pillow, walking down the makeshift aisle with such serious concentration that several guests laughed through their tears. When he reached us, he looked up at Gabriel with those identical brown eyes and whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. I did good, Daddy? Perfect, Piccolo. Gabriel replied, his voice thick. Then Luca turned to me. You're really staying forever now, right, Lisa? Forever. I promised, and meant it with every cell in my body. The ceremony was brief. No religious officiant, just a judge who owed Gabriel a favor and didn't ask questions about the armed men positioned discreetly around the perimeter. We exchanged vows we'd written ourselves. Gabriel promised honesty even when it hurt, protection always, and love despite his broken edges. I promised to stay through the darkness, to build our family with intention, and to never let him forget he was worthy of happiness. When the judge pronounced us married, Gabriel kissed me like we were alone instead of surrounded by witnesses. Thorough, claiming, a promise of what would come later. Luca made a disgusted noise that had everyone laughing, breaking the intensity into something lighter. The reception was simple. Good food, better wine, music that drew people onto a dance floor we'd set up on the grass. I danced with Gabriel, with Luca, with Vincent, who moved with surprising grace. As the sun set and lights strung through trees flickered on, I caught Gabriel watching me from across the crowd. The expression on his face made everything worth it. All the fear, all the danger, all the impossible choices that had led us here. We spent our wedding night in the main house, Luca asleep down the hall with Sophia on guard duty. No honeymoon trip, not yet. Gabriel's business still required constant attention, and I had started classes at Columbia for my psychology degree. We were rebuilding our lives around the reality of who we were, not some fantasy of who we wished we could be. The following months developed a rhythm. Gabriel continued therapy twice weekly, working through layers of trauma and guilt that would take years to fully process. He delegated more of his criminal operations, focusing on legitimate businesses he could actually discuss at dinner without making me wince. The transition was slow, complicated, sometimes violent when rivals saw weakness in his retreat. But he held steady. I threw myself into my studies with an intensity that surprised me. Child psychology, trauma therapy, developmental resilience. Every lecture, every textbook, felt like I was learning how to better help Luca, how to understand the wounds left by losing a parent. Gabriel supported it completely, even funding a small clinic I dreamed of opening once I finished my degree, a place for children who'd experienced loss and violence, who needed someone who understood that healing wasn't linear. We visited Rachel's grave together one Sunday in August. The cemetery was quiet, peaceful, her stone simple but elegant. Gabriel laid roses while Luca picked wildflowers from the edge of the property. I stood back, giving them space, until Gabriel reached for my hand and pulled me forward. "She'd want to meet you," he said quietly. "Want to know the woman who brought her son back to life." I knelt beside the grave, placed my own small bouquet. "Thank you," I whispered to a woman I'd never known, "for loving them first, for showing Gabriel what family could be, for the song you sang that found its way to me." Luca pressed against my side. "Mama would like you, Lissa." "Daddy said so." "I hope so, sweetheart." We stood there until the sun dipped low, 3 people connected by loss and love, and the messy work of building something new from broken pieces. Luca flourished that year. Therapy helped him process his grief in ways we couldn't. School gave him friends, structure, a world beyond the mansion. He still had hard days, still woke crying sometimes, still asked questions about death that broke my heart, but they were becoming less frequent. He was laughing more, playing harder, being the child he deserved to be. The threat came on a Tuesday. Unremarkable, ordinary, until it wasn't. I was making lunch when the security system activated, alarms screaming through the house. My training kicked in before conscious thought. I grabbed Luca from the living room, hit the panic button on my phone, and ran for the safe room Gabriel had insisted I memorize the path to. "Game time, buddy," I said, keeping my voice steady even as my heart tried to break through my ribs. "Remember the drills?" He nodded, scared but trusting. We made it to the safe room in 90 seconds. I locked us in, checked the monitors. 3 vehicles approaching, armed men emerging. Remnants of the cartel, according to the brief Vincent barked through the radio. A revenge attempt, poorly planned, but dangerous nonetheless. Gabriel was 20 minutes away. Vincent's team engaged immediately. On the screens, I watched a battle unfold with clinical detachment, protecting Luca's eyes while monitoring the feeds. The attack was repelled within 10 minutes. Sloppy, desperate, doomed from the start. When Gabriel finally burst through the safe room door, his face was ashen. He gathered both of us into his arms, breathing hard. "You did exactly right," he said into my hair. "Exactly right. I know," I replied, and realized I meant it. This was my life now. Not constant terror, but occasional danger met with preparation and calm. I wasn't the frightened woman from the plane anymore. I'd become someone else. Someone stronger. That night, after Luca finally slept and security was tripled, Gabriel and I sat in our bedroom. He was distant again, that familiar guilt creeping back. "Don't," I said before he could start. "Don't spiral. We handled it. We're fine. This is the life we chose together. You shouldn't have to, but I do. And I will. Stop trying to protect me from reality. I'm in this, Gabriel. All the way in." He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. We didn't make love that night, just held each other, breathing in sync, grateful to be alive, and together, and whole. A year after I'd stepped onto that plane and sung a lullaby to a crying child, I stood in our garden watching Luca play with a soccer ball. Gabriel joined me, sliding an arm around my waist. The sunset painted everything gold, making ordinary moments feel sacred. "What are you thinking?" he asked. That I never imagined this, any of this, that a single song could change everything. It wasn't just the song, it was you. Your courage, your heart, your stubborn refusal to give up on us. On him, I corrected. I stayed for Luca. And now? Now I stay for all of us. I turned in his arms, looked up at the man who'd become my entire world. This isn't the life I planned. It's dangerous and complicated and sometimes terrifying. But it's ours, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. He kissed me softly. A promise of tomorrow and all the days after. Luca called for us to watch him kick a goal. We walked toward him together, hand in hand. A family forged from grief and violence and love that refused to be defeated. The future stretched before us, uncertain but full of possibility. There would be more threats, more darkness, More nights where fear tried to win. But there would also be mornings filled with laughter. Luca's homework spread across the kitchen table. Gabriel's rare smiles that made everything worthwhile. We were not a fairy tale. We were something better. Real, flawed, fighting for each other every single day. And that I'd learned was more than good enough. Was